Hello again, humans. It is I, Jim the Ape, and I wanted to do a more serious video about something that really gets me emotionally. And not because of any experience that I've had or any personal connection that I have to the issue, but more so just out of sheer empathy. And that is the issue of domestic violence against men. Now, recently, I saw an episode of the television show Bones on Fox, and I had a lot of mixed feelings about it. The episode was called The Murder of the Meninist. I had mixed feelings about it because it was about the men's rights movement, and I feel like they got some things right, and they also got some things wrong. The words manosphere and meninist were used in the same scene, and I'm not a big fan of those words, mostly because meninists are really just satirists. They mock feminism by basically being the exact gendered opposite. So that episode got me thinking, and part of the episode's plot was that the men's rights activist who was murdered was a victim of domestic abuse at the hands of his wife. And they didn't definitively prove one way or the other, but most likely his wife had killed him and had gotten her new boyfriend to help her cover up the murder by scaring him into doing so, making him fear that she would do the same thing to him if he didn't help her. So this issue's been on my mind lately, and it's pretty emotional, and I'm not intending to make any ape jokes in this video, or I really want to talk seriously about this, and I want to talk about the fact that domestic abuse against men is something that's not talked about often, and I think that it's something that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be talked about, because for most people, when they think about domestic violence, the picture in their head is a man abusing a woman, which of course happens, and of course that's horrible, and one of the worst things you can do to someone you love. The fact of the matter is that it's not just men doing it to just women. There are homosexual relationships where men abuse their partners, and there are homosexual relationships where women abuse their partners, and there are heterosexual relationships where women are the abusers and men are the victims. But there's this narrative that feminists and SJWs like to perpetuate that women are victims and that women can do no wrong. But the reality is that women are just as capable of doing horrible things to men as men are capable of doing horrible things to women. And granted, there is a difference, and men have more upper body strength than women, so men can usually do more physical damage on their own, but there are ways that women can do damage as well, both emotionally and physically. They can use foreign objects like a pan or an iron or some other object that they can throw at a man or hit him with. So, domestic violence against men does happen, and the thing is, while of course I have to agree that domestic violence against women is horrible, there are plenty of resources that already exist. And you need only Google battered women shelter or something to that effect, and you'll find lots of resources available to women who are victims of domestic violence. And that's great. That's fantastic. That's the way it should be. However, the same is not true for male victims. Male victims don't have resources. If you try to search for domestic abuse men, you'll usually get something to the effect of, oh, are you a man and are you struggling with abusing your significant other? So it assumes that men are the perpetrators and women are the victims. That's how society views the issue. But it's not that simple. And there's a lot more variation to the situations that go on. And unfortunately, there is a social stigma against a man who is being abused by a woman. And that, in a way, prevents a lot of male victims from coming forward and from telling their stories. because they fear they won't be taken seriously. They fear there either won't be any real repercussions and there won't be any real justice, but in some cases, it will be the opposite. It'll backfire. Their attempts to get justice will only bring them more hardship because of bullshit like the Duluth model. They'll be presumed to be the abuser. So, while their wife's beating the shit out of them, they have to consider if they call the cops might come and arrest them, even if there's not a scratch on the woman. It's entirely possible, and that's sad. So, I recently saw an episode of Origins on Feminist Flow's channel, where the YouTuber who calls himself Marking Bad was talking about being abused and talking about having been in an abusive relationship and being abused by a woman. And by the sounds of it, no one really took him all that seriously. And he didn't really get justice. He wasn't really able to see his abuser face consequences. And I was just in a stream with someone by the name of Andy Worski, who's a fairly big YouTuber by the looks of it. He's got tens of thousands of subscribers. And he was talking about how he had been abused as a kid by a babysitter. And of course, it's a little different when you're a kid. Children tend to be pretty well protected, whether they're male or female, especially if they're female, but little boys get protected too when they're being abused for the most part. But for some reason, when those little boys grow up, it's a lot harder for them to be protected and for their abusers to face consequences. So this is a very serious issue to me. And I wanted to share with you a video by the YouTuber Captain McCool talking about a Kickstarter, which I will throw a bunch of links in the description, including the link to the Kickstarter. It's a Kickstarter for a short film called Padlock, and the intention of the short film is to tell the story of a man being abused by his wife and to show a visual representation of female on male domestic abuse. And I think that this is a very noble goal to show something to people that they may not have considered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put his video in this video after I'm done talking, and he'll talk more about the Kickstarter and about the film. And then after that, to drive the point home, I'm going to play an ad for the Mankind Initiative, which is something that you should also consider supporting and donating to, because it is a charity that helps male victims of domestic abuse. And the advertisement really drives the point home emotionally, because basically what it is they did a social experiment, a bit of play acting. They got a male actor and a female actress to pretend to have two different fights in public and to see how people would react in a public park. So the first time they did it, they had the man being physically kind of abusive to the woman. It's not really hitting her, but he's like putting his hands on her. And right away, people started looking. There was even a woman who came up and said, "If I don't call the police, someone will." And there were people had surrounded them and stepped up to help, because the woman was, for all they knew, being abused. They didn't know that it was fake. And then when they did the flipped version of that, where the woman was physically abusing the man and actually pushing him, and I believe she was actually like slapping at him, some people laughed. Some people were just watching with big fat fucking smiles on their face, like they were watching some kind of fucking circus show or some kind of Cirque du Soleil, acrobats jumping around. Oh wow, that's entertaining. And it's sickening, because some people were reacting as if it was a show, and then other people just did absolutely nothing, and nobody stepped up. And the only comfort that I have when watching this advertisement is that at least that time it wasn't real. Sure, that happens in real life a lot, but at least this time it wasn't real. So I just thought I'd share that with you. That's pretty much my thoughts. Please donate to the Kickstarter. Support this film. I think this short film, Padlock, is something that needs to exist to tell an untold story. And I think it's a very important cause to support. And it would also be great if you could donate to the Mankind Initiative. They're a great charity. It's one of very, very few charities in the world that exist to help male victims of domestic abuse. And I will also put the links to Captain McCool's channel and Marking Bad's channel and Andy Worski's channel. Please support them. They're awesome YouTubers, very rational, very strong in their opposition to toxic ideologies like feminism and social justice. So please support them as well. Enjoy the rest of the video, and please stay great, apes.
My sister recently sent me a Kickstarter she thought I might be interested in about a short film. And she was right, I was interested, and I want to share it with you guys as well. The short film is called Padlock, and it's the story of Matt, his abusive wife Julie, and Padlock, whatever relevance that's going to have in the story. It is a story about female or male domestic abuse, which you may know was what my dissertation was on. It's been developed with help from the Mankind Initiative, a charity I talk about a lot for their advocacy for male victims of domestic violence, as well as from interviews with male survivors of domestic violence performed by the director. Essentially, the director, Ben Hyland, wants to put to film an abusive dynamic which is rarely seen in really any form of media, but we know actually happens quite often in the real world. If you don't know that it happens very often, I will put my usual links to certain statistics and stories below. He's also being backed by a number of charities that I respect, something which I think counts in his favour. If you want to go look at his Kickstarter so you can see his video on why he's doing this, as well as the breakdown of the different costs of the film, I will also put the link to that Kickstarter below. If you've seen my talk to the University of Surrey, you'll know I'm a big believer in the power of art and media to shape cultural narratives. I don't think one film can tell you what to believe, but I think one film can tell us what to think about, what to talk about. And all the time that a female or male domestic violence relationship is not put on film, then people don't talk about it. And if they don't talk about it, they don't know about it, and then they are less open to the pleas of charities, of advocates, and most importantly, of victims. This film is going to be shown at film festivals, and I hope it reaches a more mainstream audience so that we can get this conversation going, so that we can get people talking about female or male domestic violence and the problem that it is. As I often end up doing every few months or so, I ask that if you can, you back this project, and if you can't, at least spread around either this video or even better the Kickstarter itself round different social medias, whatever one you happen to use. If you're a YouTuber, you could mirror this video, or again, even better, you could make your own video on it to say to your subscribers that you care, and you can link to the Kickstarter there as well. I know one short film isn't going to change the world, but then I think of the Mankind Initiative's Violence is Violence TV ad. Whenever I talk to people about female or male domestic violence, they understand it a lot better if they've seen that video. If they just have that one visual representation in their head of what a situation might look like, they're more open to talking about it. They're more open to hearing cold statistics or rather emotive stories. So I think films are incredibly important in talking about these issues and getting people to recognise them as issues. So please, if you are willing and able, support this film. Be exceptionally nice to one another, and I shall see you later.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll try and see you on Thursday, and then get the...
What do I do? What?
Just keep doing it. They're annoying.
What?
Too fucking cut. Come here.
Get your hand off me.
Come here.
What?
Where were you?
I'm not talking to you about this. I'm not talking to you about this. Get your hand off me.
Who was there?
Get your hand off me.
Who was there? Tell me who was there.
People are looking at us.
I swear to God, I swear to God.
People are looking at us. Will you get your hand off me? Stop there. People are looking at us. What's wrong with you?
Honestly, we're fine.
Grant, thanks.
Okay, because someone will call the police if you carry on doing that to someone.
Okay.
Because if I don't, someone else will.
Okay. It's perfectly fine.
You don't have to put up with that, Alan. Okay. Thank you.
My office is there. You're definitely all right.
Yeah, I am.
Problems just coming up.
I'm Grant, thanks. What do I do what? Do you ever listen to
Chrissy, stop it. You're crazy,
fucking
man.
manic. I've been talking at you for the last 10 minutes and you haven't listened. You haven't gotten into fucking what I've been saying to you. But you're fucking not even listening to me, that's what. Why do I push you like that? Because you won't fucking respond to me and you won't listen to me. You think you're fucking all manly?
I wasn't.
No, you can't be. No, you can't be. Don't try and fucking walk away. Stop. Listen to me when I'm talking. Don't try and fucking walk away from me. Stop it. What the fucking bullshit? What the fucking bullshit?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
What the fuck's wrong with me? There's nothing. Don't give me that shit, okay? Pathetic. You're so fucking pathetic.